You are walking through a world you believe is yours. You are the pinnacle, the sole thinking being under the vast open sky. You are skilled, you are smart, you are mistaken. The earth beneath your feet holds secrets. The forest that gives you shelter is not yours alone. You think you are the only one. You are wrong. We were a people of the sun, born in the warm grasslands of the south. Our bodies were built for endurance, for chasing the horizon. But the great herds moved north, following the retreating ice, and we, the hunters, followed them. We walked into a world of stone and frost, a land cloaked in forests, thicker and darker than any we had ever known. Every gust of wind felt like a warning. The air was thin and sharp, and the silence was heavy with things unseen. We did not know we were trespassers in a land that already had a master. Our ways were our strength. We carried the tools of our people, fine flint blades, sharp as ice shards, and our greatest invention, the spear thrower. It gave us the arm of a giant, allowing us to strike from a distance, a luxury the beasts of this cold land had never faced from a predator. We were fast, we were clever, and we worked together with a language of clicks, calls, and complex sounds that wove us into a single thinking hunting machine. We believed these skills made us invincible. It was a dangerous belief. Our leader was Alara, a woman whose memory held the stories of generations. She did not lead with strength, but with wisdom. Her eyes could read the sky, her hands could find medicine in frozen plants, and her voice could calm the fears of the young. She had led us here, following the whispers of a land rich with game, a land of promise. But as we traveled deeper into the white silence, a new line of worry etched itself onto her face. The spirits of this land, she said, were unfamiliar. They did not speak in a language she understood. The hunt was our lifeblood. It was a sacred dance of survival. Kale was our best hunter, his movements a fluid economy of motion. He understood the wind, the scent of prey, the subtle language of a broken twig. In the old world, he was a king. Here, he was a student again, learning the ways of new beasts. The woolly mammoth, the giant deer with its crown of antlers. They were bigger, stronger, but our tactics were better. We were a pack of wolves made of thought and strategy, using our numbers and our minds to overwhelm brute force. We succeeded. A young deer, separated from the herd, was our prize. The kill was quick, respectful. We gave thanks to its spirit, but as we prepared the carcass, a sense of unease returned. The forest felt wrong. It was too quiet. The birds had stopped singing. The usual scavengers that would be drawn to a fresh kill were nowhere to be seen. It felt as though the entire forest was holding its breath, watching us. Kale straightened up from his work, his hand resting on his spear, his eyes scanning the impenetrable wall of ancient pines that surrounded us. The uneasy silence pushed us onwards. We left our kill, carrying what we could, moving with a new urgency. It was a few days later, by a frozen river, that we found the first true sign. A woolly rhinoceros, a mountain of fury and armored hide, lay dead, but it wasn't the work of wolves or a cave lion. The wounds were wrong. Not the clean, deep punctures of our thrown spears, but massive, tearing gouges. This beast was not killed from a distance. It was fought head-on. It was a battle of unbelievable ferocity. And then we found the tool. Lying half buried in the blood-stained snow was a stone axe. It was heavy, brutally effective, and completely alien to us. Our tools were like needles. This was a hammer. It was shaped by a mind, but a mind that thought differently, that solved problems with pure, overwhelming force. I picked it up. The weight of it felt strange in my hand, a testament to a strength I could barely comprehend. It was like finding the den of a bear that could think and dream. Shape stone to its will. A chill deeper than the wind settled in my bones. The whispers among the clan grew louder that night. Some spoke of monstrous spirits, of giants that roamed the ice. Alara gathered us close to the fire, her voice low and steady, cutting through the fear. "These were not spirits," she said. "Spirits. Do not leave tools behind. This is the work of flesh and blood. Another people, another kind of human." The idea was almost impossible to grasp. We had walked the earth for generations believing we were the only ones, the chosen thinkers. To learn that we had a reflection, a cousin living in the shadows, was to have the ground fall away beneath our feet. The next discovery came a week later. A young hunter, scouting ahead, returned not with news of prey, but with a weapon. He had found a spear, half buried in a snowdrift. It was nothing like our own. The shaft was thick, heavy oak, polished smooth by a powerful grip. The point was a massive flake of flint, nearly the size of my palm, bound with thick sinew. This was not a weapon made for flight. It was a lance, a tool for thrusting, for delivering a fatal blow from only an arm's length away. To use this, you had to have the courage to face a beast's dying rage. Once we knew what to look for, we saw the signs everywhere. The tracks, they were broader than our own, with a lower arch and toes slightly more splayed. The print of a body built for stability and power, not for long-distance running. We found them along game trails we used ourselves, by streams where we gathered water, and once chillingly, a single set of tracks discovered at dawn, just outside the ring of our camp's firelight. They had been there in the night, watching, listening. The ghosts had names, had families, and they were walking our path. The world no longer felt big enough. We followed the tracks to a shallow cave, tucked beneath a rocky overhang. The entrance was a dark mouth that seemed to swallow the light. My heart hammered against my ribs, a drumbeat of fear and fascination. The embers of a fire were still, faintly warm. The smell was musky and unfamiliar, the scent of a different kind of life. Discarded bones from a large bird lay scattered, cracked open with precision to get at the marrow. On a ledge, a single eagle feather and a pierced seashell sat side by side. They were not just surviving. They were decorating. They were thinking. This was their home. It was 3 days later, from a high ridge overlooking a wooded valley, that I finally saw them. The ghosts became flesh. It wasn't a monster or a spirit. It was a family. A man, a woman, and a child moving through the trees below. Their bodies were immense, shorter than us, but broader, with chests like barrels and limbs thick with muscle. They moved with a slow, deliberate confidence, a physical certainty that told me this land, the cold, the snow, the biting wind, was no enemy to them. It was their garden. I was the weed. We watched for hours, frozen in our hiding spot. The male's face was long, dominated by a heavy brow and a large, prominent nose, an adaptation, I now realize, to warm the frigid air with every breath. He was not the grunting beast of our fears. His eyes were sharp, constantly scanning, assessing. He communicated with the female in low, guttural sounds, a language we could not parse, but could clearly understand had meaning. They were a perfect design for this world, a masterpiece of evolution sculpted by ice and hardship. And we, the slender newcomers, felt fragile by comparison. Then we saw them hunt. It was an art form of terrifying power. They did not chase, they ambushed. They used the terrain like a weapon, herding a giant deer into a narrow ravine. Then, they exploded from cover. They didn't throw their spears from afar as we did. They charged, closing the distance with shocking speed, and drove their heavy spears into the beast's side with the full force of their powerful bodies. It was a close, intimate, life or death ballet, a dance of courage and lethality that left us breathless in our hiding spot. But after the fury of the hunt came something even more shocking. The hunters did not gorge themselves first. They carried the best cuts of meat back to their camp, where the female and child waited. We watched as the male offered a piece to the child first. Later, we saw the female tending to a deep gash on the male's arm, her powerful hands moving with a surprising gentleness. They were not just a hunting party, they were a family. They cared for each other. They protected each other. This discovery was more terrifying than their strength. To fight a monster is simple, but to compete with another thinking, loving family, that was a war we did not know how to win. For weeks we lived in a state of quiet tension, a dance of avoidance. We knew their territory, they knew ours. We were two predators sharing a forest, each respecting the other's power. But the world is woven with accidents, and the threads of fate can be pulled by the smallest hands. A young boy from our clan, Lido, his mind full of curiosity and empty of fear, wandered from the camp. He was chasing a brilliant blue bird, his laughter echoing through the trees, a sound too innocent for this ancient, watchful land. He rounded a large bend in the stream, and his laughter died in his throat. Standing there, not 10 paces away, was a Neanderthal female. She had been gathering water, and she looked up, just as startled as he was. Lido let out a cry of pure terror. It was a signal that shattered the forest's peace. From the woods on, her side, her clan appeared, spears in hand. From our camp, we came running, our own weapons ready. Within moments, the dance was over. We stood on one bank of the stream, they on the other. Spears were raised. The future of two peoples balanced. On a knife's edge, separated only by a few feet of rushing water. Their leader was a mountain of a man, his face a history of old battles, a deep scar cutting across one brow. But his eyes were not wild. They were sharp, focused, and fiercely intelligent. He was not looking at us as prey. He was assessing us. He saw our slender bodies, our strange spear throwers, our greater numbers. I saw his clan's raw power, their unyielding posture, their complete lack of fear. This was not a fight between man and beast. This was a meeting of two kings, each protecting his own. The fate of my family, my people, rested on my next move. Image prompt, photorealistic, 8K, cinematic lighting, 16:9 aspect ratio. An intense close-up on the face of the lead Neanderthal male. His brow is heavy, his eyes are intelligent and assessing. Not just aggressive, a prominent scar is visible. In the faint reflection of his eye, the smaller figures of the Sapiens clan can be seen. The lighting highlights every line and texture of time stretched until it was thin enough to break. Every heartbeat was a thunderclap. My mind raced, weighing the odds. A fight would be devastating. Even if we won, we would be weakened, vulnerable. We could not afford victory at that price. I looked at their leader's eyes and I saw the same calculation. He was not a mindless brute. He was a father, a protector, a strategist. He was me in a different form. In that shared moment of terrible responsibility, the future was written. Then he moved. Slowly, deliberately, with no wasted motion, the Neanderthal leader lowered the point of his massive spear until it touched the rocky ground. It was not an act of surrender. It was a statement, a gesture of power held in check. A sign of intelligence far greater than brute force. We will not attack unless you force us to. A collective breath I didn't know we were holding was released. I looked at the child, then back at the leader. I nodded once. And slowly, I mirrored his action, lowering my own spear. The war was over before it began. With a final lingering look, the Neanderthal clan turned as one and melted back into the forest. They moved with no sound, vanishing as if they were never there. We stood in silence, the cries of the child now quieted, the adrenaline slowly leaving our bodies. The immediate danger was gone, but a deeper truth had taken its place. This world was not empty. We were not alone. That night, Ilara spoke. This valley is their home. Their spirits are tied to these trees, this water. We are guests here, and we are no longer welcome. We knew she was right. We would not stay. We left at dawn, turning our backs on the valley. As we walked, my mind replayed the encounter. I had seen their strength, a power my body could never match. But they had seen something in us too, our numbers, the strange, deadly grace of our throwing spears, or was it something in our eyes? A flicker of abstract thought, a capacity for complex planning that they recognized as a different, perhaps more dangerous kind of power. The arms race of evolution was not just about muscle and bone, it was a war of minds. The encounter by that stream was not an isolated event. It was the beginning of a story that would last for 15,000 years. Two distinct human species shared a continent. They competed for food, for caves, for life itself. But the story, written in our genes, tells a more complex tale. It speaks not only of competition, but of contact. In the cold nights of Ice Age Europe, they met. And sometimes they saw past the differences. We know this because their legacy is not just in the tools they left behind. It is within us. In the end, however, only one of us would remain. The Neanderthals, who had survived hundreds of thousands of years of ice ages, began to fade. Why? There is no single answer. Perhaps the rapidly changing climate favored our more adaptable, long-distance bodies. Perhaps our wider social networks allowed us to weather hardship better. Perhaps it was our art, our stories, our symbols, a new kind of software for the brain that allowed for greater cooperation and planning. They were not inferior. They were simply a different answer to the question of being human. And their time was over. They vanished from the earth, but they never truly left. They are a ghost in our genome, a silent partner in the story of our own becoming. They are a profound and humbling reminder that for a brief, flickering moment in the immensity of time, we were not special. We looked out into the world and saw another human staring back, a reflection of ourselves in a different mirror. And understanding their fate is essential to understanding our own improbable journey to becoming the last humans on Earth. The story of the Neanderthals is our story too. Their legacy is written in the 1 to 4% of DNA carried by many of us today. It raises the ultimate question: what was the critical factor that allowed our ancestors to thrive while they faded away? Was it technology, social bonds, or a new way of thinking? Let us know your theory in the comments below. If you want to journey back in time with us again, make sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell. Thank you for watching.